Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Pure Pathways for another episode of our Ramadan story. Today's lesson comes from an interesting story about a man who lived in the generation after the Prophet ﷺ. Our story is that of Abu Nasr Al-Sayyad, Abu Nasr the Fisherman. Abu Nasr was a poor fisherman who struggled every day to feed his family. One day, Abu Nasr went to the masjid and complained to the Imam about his problem. The Imam told him to pray 2 rak'at to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before heading out on his daily fishing trip on the river. Abu Nasr prayed 2 rak'at to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking him for his help, and he went out to fish. He recited Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name before throwing his fishing net, and he waited. Within a short period of time, his net became filled with many large fish. Abu Nasr rushed to the marketplace to sell them and buy some goods for his family. And by the end of the day, he was on his way home with a fresh loaf of bread and a bag of food, so excited to show his family what he had brought for them. But on his way home, he saw a widowed woman and her child sitting by the side of the street. She had tears flowing down her cheeks, and her child had the look of hunger in his eyes. Abu Nasr remembered that his own family was hungry too, but he couldn't walk away. He wanted to share from the gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him that day, so he gave everything he had to the woman and child, and he left, turning back one last time to see the smile on their faces. Once he reached his home and saw his own family, he started to feel worried again, concerned. How am I going to feed my family today? Suddenly there was a knock on the door, and Abu Nasr opened it to find an elderly man standing there. "Is this the home of Abu Nasr?" he asked. "I borrowed a large sum of money from your father 20 years ago, and I've been looking for you ever since he passed away. People told me that you're his only son, and I've come to pay back my loan." In one instant and out of nowhere, Abu Nasr was handed a fortune, and he became a wealthy man. Abu Nasr gained more and more wealth over time and started donating thousands of dirhams in charity. Unfortunately though, as people started to praise his actions, he began to feel overly confident with his good deeds, and his intentions got spoiled. He became arrogant. He started giving more and more just to show people how rich he was. He had lost his sincerity. One night, Abu Nasr had a dream that the Day of Judgment had begun. He saw himself standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, waiting to be judged with the rest of humanity. His scale was brought before him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala weighed his deeds. He had some bad ones, of course, but Abu Nasr was confident that the massive amount of charity he gave would help him and tip the scale in his favor. So, Abu Nasr's sadaqah was placed on the scale. All the gold and money he gave over a period of so many years, they were sure to weigh a ton. But the scale didn't move. The sadaqah weighed nothing at all. This charity had no value and no blessing. It was tainted with bad intentions, the intention of showing off. All of it had been given for the sake of the people and not for the sake of Allah. Abu Nasr was left standing there feeling hopeless and full of regrets. Suddenly, he heard an angel ask, "Does he have any other good deeds to add?" A loaf of bread and a pouch of food were dropped onto the scale. The gift he had given the widowed mother and her child, his true act of kindness. Abu Nasr cried out, "What will these do for me?" But before his very eyes, the scales began to tip until his good deeds outweighed his bad deeds. The tears of the widow and the smile of her child turned into physical objects, dropping one by one onto the scale, so heavy in the eyes of Allah. His one act of sincerity was heavier on the scale than the thousands of dirhams he had donated. And the angels called out, "He is saved, he is saved!" And Abu Nasr woke up. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests people who have very little to see how much they trust him. We don't have to wait to have a lot to give. We don't have to give hundreds or thousands. As we learn from this story, a small act with the right intention is multiplied in the sight of Allah. And it just may be that that tiny act is the one that tips our scales and enters us into Jannah. Assalamu alaikum. I hope to see you all again. May all your pathways be pure.